I pledge to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But let me cut to the chase, Your Honor. I am guilty as charged. There are many times in my life where I said yes when I wish I had said no. Other times where I said no that I really wish I had said yes. And plenty of opportunities that I passed on that could have enriched my life. And whether you're in your 30s, your 50s, or your 70s, there's lots of important chapters in front of us in life still. So I want to look back at some of the chapters of my life and share with you some of the mistakes that I made in the hopes that all of us can more fully enjoy the chapters in front of us. Okay, what's the number one regret that I have? And this one's kind of crazy. When I turned down a free trip, all expense paid trip for my family and me when I first started working as a financial advisor. I shouldn't say first, but probably 4 or 5 years into being a retirement advisor for my firm. My firm knew that at that point I had not traveled much. And both of the founders of the company that I work with are big travelers. They know that it opens your horizons, it opens your thinking. And I was at a stage in my life where, you know what, if they hadn't offered to give me a free trip to Europe, there was no way I was going. I had young kids, I had a lot going on, I had a lot of demands on my time and a lot of demands on my money. And they offered to give me extra vacation and actually pay for a trip to Europe. Just to give me that experience to see other cultures and to widen my horizons. And you know what your man Azul said? Thanks, but no thanks. Are you crazy? Why did I do that? Frankly, I'm not entirely sure why I did that. I can tell you, you know, as any parent of young children will tell you, there's just a lot going on. And so part of it was just busyness. And, you know, many of these mistakes, many of these regrets I'm going to share with you are behavioral, psychological challenges that not only challenge us in making the most of our lives, but they can also lead to investment mistakes. And in this case, I was just trying to minimize the hassles in my life. The thought of putting my kids on a 12, 16-hour flight over to Europe with connections and everything else, it just wasn't happening. And fortunately, both my wife and I felt the same way. So super appreciative. I still am super appreciative that they offered that. But I said no, and now that my kids are grown and I don't have to worry about too many hassles in my life anymore, boy, I really wish I had said yes. And you know, fortunately, I've been able to travel to 50 different countries since then. Since my kids went to college, I've been able to do that. And I've become a big fan of it. And I completely agree with my bosses that said, you know, it's going to open your mind. You're going to make better decisions. You're going to be able to better relate to our clients as well. So guilty as charged, mea culpa. I really wish I had done that one. Okay, another regret that I have is when I was in my 30s, I didn't have enough faith that things were going to work out. And so I ended up working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. I basically worked away my 30s. I had a lot of fun in my 20s. And your 30s is a time to start building your career. It is a time to start doubling down on your savings. It's a time to be spending with your family. But in hindsight, I wish I had more faith that my best was good enough. Frankly, I'd never heard that phrase until I was like 40 years old. I remember the first time I heard that phrase, your best is good enough. I was in a meeting with a bunch of peers, a bunch of attorneys, a bunch of accountants, people that work in estate planning, helping our clients. So I'm a financial advisor. I've been a financial advisor now for over 20 years. We work a lot with accountants and with attorneys. And I was in this once a year kind of meeting with everybody. And over lunch, we had an anchor woman from the local news station just give us a motivational talk. And one of the things she talked about with her journey was how encouraging her mother was. And she said that phrase that her mother used to always say, honey, your best is good enough. And I remember how that just hit me. I actually had to, this was during lunch, she was the lunchtime speaker. I actually had to leave the room. I was so touched, I was so moved by that because, it was like this wave of relief. Yes, of course, that's true. My best is good enough, but you know what? I overdid it. I overcompensated in my 30s. And frankly, I wish I had done other things and had a broader experience being in my 30s than what I did. Okay, and kind of related to that is worrying too much. Anxiety about my career, anxiety about being a provider for my family and being able to make that happen. When my oldest daughter was born, after she was about 18 months old, I actually switched industries. That's when I became a financial advisor. And I used that switch, that change, to say this is a great time to take some time off of work. And so I actually took a 1-year sabbatical, kind of the ultimate mini retirement. And in this case, I was just Mr. Mom to my daughter. She was 18 months old, so from 18 to 2.5, which was just a great age. It was a lot of work. My wife wasn't sure I'd be able to do that. And she's like, I'm not sure you're going to last a month, so you better be ready to start working again. And candidly, if it hadn't been for that challenge in those tough couple days, first days when you're setting up a new routine, I'm not sure I would have made it. But you know what? I got a lot of joy and a lot of great memories from doing that. But there was a thief of joy during that time, and that was the anxiety knowing that, you know, in 11 months now I'm going to be looking for a new job and I'm going to be switching careers. That's going to be hard. In 6 months, in 3 months, in 1 month. And I let it steal joy from me. And that's the thing about anxiety. Anxiety steals joy from me. Anxiety is worrying about the future. Regret is worrying about the past. And both are thieves, right? There's nothing we can do about the past. There's nothing from an anxiety standpoint. We don't know what the future holds for us. So just enjoying the time, being in the moment. Now, some folks might say, hey, Azul, this video is about your regrets. And technically, yes, but I don't dwell on this. These aren't things that I'm really sad about. They're really things that I want to learn from. And I want to share them with you in case we have common experiences and they can be helpful for other people. Okay, number 4, and I got to lean in and ask your permission to tell you a secret because this one's a little embarrassing, so we have to keep it between us. And that is, prior to becoming a financial advisor, which, you know, happened in my mid to late 30s, as a young person, my asset allocation, I almost can't say this with a straight face, it's so silly of me, but my asset allocation was 60% stocks, 40% bonds. Really from the time I graduated from business school, so in my late 20s, to my mid-30s, I was 60-40. At a time where, knowing what I know now, I should have been 100% in the stock market. And you know, if asset allocation is 80% of your likely returns, it determines 80% of your likelihood of achieving your goals. So asset allocation is hugely important, and I blew it on that. And that was one of the first things that I changed when I got into the industry. Was I got an asset allocation that was more appropriate. So why did I do that? What was the issue there? And that was really just fear. You know, why was I 60-40? It was fear and it was loss aversion. I didn't want to lose money, but sometimes you need to loosen the grip. You need to be comfortable, and it helps to be an optimist about the country and about the world in general, that companies are going to continue to do things better, faster, and cheaper. Doesn't mean there's not going to be wars during that period of time. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be recessions. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be large sectors of the economy that are hurting. But there's a saying in my business that Wall Street climbs a wall of worry. And you know what? There's a lot of truth to that. There's always something to worry about. And I let that from keeping me from having my right asset allocation. Okay, the next one, related to asset allocation, is, and this one had a good outcome, but candidly it was a bad decision. In 2008, 2009, when stock prices were falling, again, I've always been more conservatively invested. So I was 60-40. I moved that to 80% stocks, which is more appropriate for my age group. And then the great financial crisis came, and stock prices were falling. Top to bottom, the S&P 500 fell almost 60%. I believe it was 57%. And somewhere in that downfall, probably when the S&P 500 had dropped by about a third, I went all in. I went from 80% stocks to 100% stocks. Now, I still felt a lot of pain because the stock market continued to fall for 3, 4, 5 very long months. And when you're all in, that can be a lot of stress. Fortunately, it was not too much stress. I was able to stay the course. But as a professional, that was a big move, and usually you're better off not making huge changes all at once. And I was overconfident. So what was the behavioral economics behind that one? That was just overconfidence, and that was just greed. I saw the market falling. You know, frankly, the market fell to a point, I kind of felt like I had a do-over. From the time I left business school till now, you know, the market had gone up, but now it had fallen back to the level where I was in business school. And so when it fell to that level, which was about, it erased 10 years of returns, that's when I went all in. I was like, this is a chance to redo that mistake. So again, good outcome, but I think the decision, I could have been burnt. In the lows of 2009, which came in March 9th, I believe was the date. But you know what, January, February, and early March were really painful months for me. I'm grateful that I have good colleagues at work that were able to help me stay the course. Okay, and then the biggest regret, I think, is common for a lot of parents of young kids, right? I did not spend as much time as I could have with my young kids. Now, I'm very fortunate. I was able to spend a lot of time with my young kids, but I could have spent more. And now that they're gone, it's like, oh, you know, we could have gone on this vacation. We could have done that trip. We could have done these adventures. It was just, what was the behavioral economics going on then? I think any parent of young kids, or we can all think back, what was the psychological factor there? Sheer exhaustion, right? I was just tired, which is why I didn't do it. So I'm super grateful for what I was able to do. Before I let you go, I want to point out one last thing. Take a look at my thumbnail. And you can tell that my thumbnail designer, who did a great job on this, and I love her, but her native measuring system is the metrics. So take a look at how tall I am in that thumbnail. And also take a look at this video here, which talks about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.